I have had the opportunity to observe from close quarters thousands and thousands of students over the decades in my career as a teacher. Most of the students being average or below average. I kept asking the question why they were average students or below average students. What prevented them from performing brilliantly in their examinations? I discovered that in most of the cases, or in almost all the cases, it was not lack of intellectual capacity. It was not weak memorization powers. It was not lack of academic resources. In fact, very often I found that the superachiever and the underperformer, the superachiever and the underachiever had much in common with each other, more or less the same intellectual capacity, the same memorization powers, the same academic exposure in the classroom, and frequently they came from comparable family backgrounds. Then, what is the reason or what are the reasons for the average student or the below average student for being what he is? I arrived at the conclusive finding that the main reason, the principal reason for poor academic performance was and is motivation, or rather the lack of motivation. The difference between the superachiever and the underachiever is that the underachiever lacks motivation, while the superachiever is highly motivated. In fact, I think there is not much of a difference between 82 students except the factor of motivation. Motivation is a vast, complex, and interesting subject on which I shall speak in detail on some other occasion. Right now, I shall confine myself to defining motivation in a rather simplistic manner. Motivation is that which makes a person initiate an activity, prolong that activity up to a particular point, terminate that activity at a particular point. Put very simply, motivation is that which makes you do something, whatever that something be. Motivation, psychologists tell us, can be intrinsic, where the activity itself is a motivation. The activity is so enjoyable, so pleasurable, so satisfying that it becomes the motivation for doing it. Or extrinsic, where the motivation comes from something external, outside to the activity. And then you have the famous hierarchy of needs of Abraham Maslow, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, oft quoted, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I do not intend to get into all this. My question today is very simple. What can be done to motivate an average or a below average student? Again, this is a rather vast subject, but today I am looking for a one line answer. Is there a one step solution, a one step method to overcoming to the to overcome demotivation? If so, what is it? Practically all your work is done in your study. What about the walls of your study? Most probably they're all bare. Or maybe some pictures are hung on the walls, but the pictures have little to do with your work. The solution to the problem of demotivation is a motivational wall. The solution to the problem of demotivation is a motivational wall. A motivational wall is a wall on which a passage is written, is inscribed, a passage which is capable of helping you overcome your demotivation. I have used it myself. I started using this when I was a student, when I was a schoolboy. I wanted to affix a motivational poster on the wall of my study. But those days, printed posters were not available, especially in the small towns where I lived as a child, as a boy. So I made the poster myself and affixed the same on the wall. You should ensure that nothing else is there on the wall, that the motivational poster shines from the wall in solitary splendor. And you should also ensure that you can constantly look at the motivational wall, the motivational poster, without taking much effort. In my case, the passage was inscribed, the motivational poster was affixed on the wall right in front of me. So whenever I lifted my eyes from my books, I saw the passage. My eyes met the motivational wall and the motivational poster and the motivational passage inscribed, written on the poster. The line that I wrote on the motivational poster, which was affixed on the motivational wall of my study, was a choice characteristic of a student of British literature, British history, British sport, and British culture. Eclipse first, the rest nowhere. Eclipse is looked upon as the greatest race horse in the history of the British turf. He was an undefeated 18th century British thoroughbred belonging to William Augustus, Prince William Augustus, the Duke of Cumberland, the third son, the youngest son of George II. He won decisively in every single race in which he took part and retired from the turf undefeated. As I said, he is looked upon as the greatest racehorse in British turf history. Eclipse first, the rest nowhere. It was often said at the time, eclipse first. Of course, eclipse is first. That's not something very great. The rest nowhere. Eclipse was always way ahead of the competition. He did not merely win races, he won them decisively. No racehorse could ever defeat Eclipse. More importantly, Eclipse defeated all the other racehorses in a decisive manner. My dream as a schoolboy, as a child, was to be an academic eclipse. I told myself that it was not enough that I got the first rank. It was not enough that I stood first in the class, in the batch, in the university, in the college. I had to be way ahead of my competition. One, I had to be victorious in every competition. Two, the victory had to be decisive. One look at this line, at this small passage, eclipse first, the rest nowhere, was more than sufficient to boost my motivation level. May I suggest that you should create a motivational wall for yourself in your study, that you should affix a motivational poster on that wall and ensure that an appropriate passage is written, is inscribed on that poster.